I think a lot of the time when we hear the word Christ, it becomes like it's like this hippie version of Jesus, where it's just like, oh, he was such a nice guy. And no, he was a man's man. And it was the pinnacle of what it is to be a man. So maybe if we could just dive right into it, what that means to you.
Yeah, this is something I'm passionate about because I've told people that, my savior that I followed, Jesus, was a man's man. And as you and I were talking, one of the examples that I talk to people about all the time is I say, hey, think about this. How many men today could go out into the wild, into the wilderness for 40 days? Now, we're not even talking about fasting. We're not talking about the spiritual warfare that Jesus faced there. I'm just talking about how many men do you know that can go by themselves alone into the wild for 40 days and then step back and say, what kind of man would that be?
Yeah, very,
what
very
kind of
few.
man would it take? Yeah, very few, right? And I think about that because as you and I were talking, doctrinally, Jesus had to be 100% human yet without sin in order to be our representative, to be the one that would be sacrificed on our behalf. He had to be 100% human. So he didn't get any, as you and I were talking, Jesus, when he faced temptation, he never gave in. So he felt the full brunt of temptation. So his strength had to be way more than our strength, but he faced that as the God man. And he faced that like the humanity side of him. He had to be a man's man. As we talked about, he went into the conflicts that he had with the religious leaders of the day. He did that on their territory, their home turf, by himself. Many times his disciples were back behind him saying, hey, bud, do you know you offended those guys and everything? So they weren't like backing him up. Yeah, that strength that I see in him when I read the Gospels, I try to take the time not to read through too fast. So when I see 40 days in the wild, when he goes out into the wilderness, I just stop and think about that for a while. I said, okay, put myself in his shoes. What kind of man would it take? How hard would that be? Well, that's not easy. That's a hard thing. That's a thing that most men in today's world couldn't do. So you start to get a different picture of who Jesus was when he was here on earth. And I see that a lot. The men he related to, how they related to him, how he was a protector, people that were sidelined by society. Those are the ones that he went to. He went to them. He wanted to make sure that they recognized the fact that this message, who I am and what I bring here, this salvation is for you.